Corporal punishment, having been around since ancient times, became widespread in the 1800s in schools and the judicial system as routine punishment. However, during the late 20th and early 21st centuries, bans started going into place all across the world. Today, we're going to talk about all things corporal punishment. I'm Laura.
I'm the Jericho.
I'm Krista.
And his brother Nichols.
And this is Reconfiguring Reality. First and foremost, what is corporal punishment?
Whooping that ass.
Well, I mean, when I hear about corporal punishment, I think about going to jail.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But I don't understand why do you think of going to jail when you think corporal punishment? How did the two correlate?
Well, I've been to jail many times, and most times when I hear about corporal punishment, I think about the judge giving me a sentence.
But what is corporal punishment?
So for me, it's, when you're disciplining your children using physical discipline, when it rises to that level where we're talking about a penalty for breaking law, it could be everything from physical discipline all the way up to the death penalty and being put to death. But the key component, in my opinion, is that it's physical. It's a physical punishment.
So, like Gil getting whipped in whatever Hunger Games that was?
Corporal punishment, yes.
All right. And like being smacked over the knuckles with a ruler in school by the nuns?
Corporal punishment, yes.
I
Right.
was just reading something on Google, and it says in several countries, physical punishment remains a legal penal sentence ordered by courts or used by prison authorities.
Really?
Did you guys know that corporal punishment is still allowed in many states in the United States in schools?
What, like 17 or 18 or 19 or something like that?
Yeah, it's a close to half.
Yep,
Do you know where they are? What states?
I do. So in Hawaii, Alaska, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, Ohio, West Virginia, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, New
Wait,
Jersey, New
are you
York
reading off the ones that it is legal or is not legal?
is legal. Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine. It is legal for corporal punishment in schools.
Wait.
No, I don't agree.
When did Tennessee ban it? Because I was getting whoop paddlings in Tennessee in ninth grade.
There's more states that actually had it, but in 2024, several states banned it in the school systems. Now, the thing is, though, here's the thing. School systems, it's divided in half because you have private schools and then you have public schools. So in 45 states, private schools are allowed to have it, but in 18 states, public schools are allowed to have it.
I'm surprised that Texas and Florida are not on that list.
They are. This is why I'm confused because I'm looking at a map right now.
So here's the thing.
Okay.
15 states explicitly permit it, while 3 states don't permit it explicitly, but they also have no law banning it. So it's not as if they're endorsing it, but they don't have a law saying you can't do it.
If you
And
look
oh, go ahead.
if you look at the Discord, I posted a map. This map is the US states where corporal punishment is allowed. PA and New York, and they're not on here.
Right, but is that for public schools only or for private schools also?
Yeah, I'll put the link in so that you can see where I got it.
Because that's a very small sampling of schools, right? That's what I'm saying. So what I'm looking at is total schools. Yeah, this is only for public schools, it says.
Where does it say? I don't know where it says that at.
It says it in the first sentence.
Okay.
This
Oh,
map shows states in 2025 with corporal punishment policies dark gray and incident data orange dots for public schools districts for
Okay.
2017 and 2018.
Okay.
but going back to when I was saying the different countries that um do physical corporal punishments within jails or in
Mhm.
prisons, there are 30 countries. And you have Singapore, Malaysia, Brunei, Iran, Saudi Arabia, United Emirates, oh, the Caribbeans also, like in the Bahamas or the Dominican Republic.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I was looking though, in Malaysia, it's usually for drug or violent charges. It's called judicial caning, which
Judicial
means
what?
you get judicial caning means you get beat with a cane with your clothes on, pretty much.
Oh, okay, okay. Huh.
And I don't want to go through everything that happened to you in Iran.
Yeah, overseas is a wild bunch.
But
So,
I don't expect the Caribbean to be like that though.
I mean, that's the thing. And not to go super far off topic, but like we saw with the World Cup, right? And everybody was like all shocked how nice America was despite what the media. The thing is, people who live in America and they like those people who have to gripe about how bad our country is and how great all these other countries in are compared to us. They've never been to those countries. Or if they have, it's only as a tourist. When you actually leave America and you realize just how oppressive a lot of the other countries are, including first world countries, you start to realize that America is the most free country, and that's the reality of the situation. When you go to another country and you can be arrested and jailed because you say something they don't like, when you can if you have to own a license to watch TV.
Oh no,
Yeah.
America is a great country. It's the people that suck.
Well, that's the thing. Like when you're entitled, right? When you have a lot of privilege, you think the world is the same as you. That's why rich people don't often understand a poor person's plight, is because they don't know that world. So they're like, well, why don't you just get up, get a job, and get a house? Like, why do you just choose to be poor? Right? Like they don't understand it because they've never had to deal with anything that a poor person's had to deal with. They've always had money. So the same thing goes with Americans. A lot of Americans, you know, they don't understand that you have the luxury to gripe and complain and whine and throw fits and go on social media. Like the poorest person in America is a king in most countries in terms of wealth and opportunity. And the same goes with even like corporal punishment. Like most of us Now, I'm not saying everyone, because a lot of us have had it rough, but most of us who've gotten hit or punished harshly when we were young, compared to what other countries have, it was a walk in the park. Like the horror stories you hear people talk about, like, oh, you don't understand. I got hit one time, like my mom smacked me square in the mouth, like just with a slap in front of all my friends. It's like, oh no, you poor little sunflower, right? Like, did your mom like staple you to a chair, like through your flesh? No? Okay, then you haven't had it that bad. Like, let's calm down, right? Like, it's literally a different world you live in. And when you start to look into these topics, this is one of the reasons I like doing the podcast, is you start to realize just how good you have it. Like that's why I've never had the appeal that other people did, where they're just like, "Oh man, I really would love to live in Africa." No, thank you. You can have it all day long. I don't want to live in any other of those countries. No, thank you. I like being right where I'm at.
But a lot of those people, they look at it from the side of the wealthy, how wealthy people in other countries live. They don't think about the poor average Joe or the regular working person.
Well, ignorance unfortunately rears its ugly head in a lot of ways. I mean, even just look at like the World Cup and what's been going on, right? Like most Americans had no clue that Europeans, right? In Europe, most European countries are first world countries. We consider them to be on par. Did you know that as of this year, the poorest state in our country makes more GDP per capita than England does? Our poorest state makes more money than England.
I mean, but again, people look at the way what they see on TV and how wealthy people live on TV or what they see on TikTok videos or YouTube, not actual going there. Because, like you said earlier, most people only visit other countries as tourists. We don't go where normal people live and how normal people act.
Yep. And it's the same thing with like corporal punishment. Now, I'm not saying it's great and we all should just, start corporal punishing everybody, but some situations call for a stronger hand. Like my son, he was going through a lot when he was growing up, and I couldn't be around him 24/7. So when he was under the care of somebody else, I needed to make sure they were raising him right. Because when he was very young, he did like most kids who were sensitive. He would whine and cry and just, fall to pieces until he got his way. Not tantrums per se, but just because he was overly sensitive. And they would just kind of coddle him and let him cry, and he became disruptive. And then they would, call his mother and she'd go pick him up and whatever. And I was like, no, this has to stop. And she's like, well, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'll take care of it. So like when he was little, I took him to school and we had a nice talk, and like, we're not going to do this and we're not going to cry. We're going to be a big boy because this is what we have to do. And so he understood and he's like, okay, I'll, and all that stuff. And I'm like, all right. And I get him to this class and he has like 47 kids in this class. They're all, shoved into one of these like outside portable classrooms, right? And there's like one teacher and like three teachers' aides, and none of which are actually certified teachers' aides. It's just like people they hired off the street. So I'm like, okay, I can understand why he's getting overstimulated with all these kids and all this kind of stuff. But he's gonna have to tough it out because unfortunately, tough situation or not, it's not like they're beating these kids. It's a little bit noisy and it's crowded. So I go in there, he seems to be okay. As soon as I walk out of eyeshot, he starts into his routine, right? Because he knows he's gonna cry and whine, and they're gonna call me or mom to go pick him up. They never call me because normally I'm at work, but I took a day off to handle this nonsense. So as soon as this starts, I stop dead in my tracks. Again, I'm just out of eyeshot, and I'm waiting for the teachers to do something because they slare up and down. They try to work with him and all this kind of stuff. And I hear the normal title stuff you see today, right? They're kind of like, okay, let's try to do that. They're like bargaining with him and doing this kind of nonsense. And I'm like, he's a child. This is ridiculous. So I just whip around the corner, and I throw on the dad voice and I shout in an authoritative but raised tone, and I shout out, "Hey!" The entire classroom stops dead in their tracks. They all snap attention, look at me. The teachers follow suit. I said, "You're going to knock that crap off right now. Because if I have to come in that classroom, you're going to have a good reason to cry." We never had that problem again. Because once he knew he was on my radar, he knew that every year that I've raised him, I've never lied to my son. I've never made a false threat or false promise. So I told him, "I'm coming for your ass." All the hugs, kisses, promises, sorries, anything else in the world that he threw up in the air, prayers to Jesus did not save him. Because when I promise you something's going to happen, that's exactly what's going to happen. And the reason for that is because my word means nothing if I have no follow through. And that's all it took. Because he knows there's no caving with me. There's no second chances. There's no bargaining. There's no reasoning. I'm like an unstoppable force. Arguing with me is like arguing with the wind or a hurricane. You can yell at it and tell it, "Please don't blow up my house." It's not going to stop me. You've made the decision you've made. Now the consequences are coming whether you like it or not. And the thing is, and afterwards, we have the talk, and I'm like, "You know exactly why you're getting punished. You made the choices that brought you to this point. I didn't make the choice for you. I didn't tell you to misbehave. I didn't force you to do these things. You did. I don't want to have to punish you. I hate having to do this, but you forced my hand because I gave you the consequences of what would happen with the choices you made. You made the choice. Now I must fulfill my end of the bargain." And so, fast forward, we're going through all these things. He's having to deal with his mother and me splitting up and all this kind of stuff. And I understand he's going through a lot. So I try to reason with him. I try to help him. And he's reached a point now where, I haven't spanked my son in I can't tell you how long, because as he gets older, spankings lose their effectiveness. They're great when kids are small because you can't really have in-depth conversations with them. You can to a point, but after a while, you're just throwing word salad at them. So if you need them to learn quick lessons, a little swat here or there gets them to understand in a real way where a long conversation isn't necessarily going to get the point across. And each kid's different.
Uh,
But
Krista, did you smack your kids?
So I did spank initially. I pretty much stopped when at 2 years old, my youngest put his hands on his hips and said, "That didn't hurt." And I figured, well, that's not an effective form of discipline because it had he just didn't care. So I primarily, and granted, too, my bachelor's degrees are in psychology and child development. So I have a lot of tricks up my sleeve. So I did use timeout and talking to them about, what they did was wrong. But other than just like being normal, naughty preschoolers and toddlers, I didn't have to discipline a whole lot. I got lucky. But yes, I did try spanking and it didn't work.
yeah, each kid's different about it. It's also well, I look at spanking as a tool, right? Like, and again, like any tool, can you open a jar of pickles with a hammer? Yeah, you can, but it's not the most effective tool for the job, right? So, like, every situation, you've got to kind of measure what you're doing. So, like, when my son reached a certain age, he was having anger issues. And he wasn't a violent kid by nature, but if he reached a certain point, he would become more frustrated and be less prone to handling things in a calm manner. And one time I got a call from the school and he got into a fight. And he's never gotten into a fight before. So I was like, okay, well, now I have to deal with this, right? And he knows not to put his hands on people. So I go to school. I'm like, what happened? And the what I used to call yard narcs back in the day is like, well, your son got in a fight with three boys. And I'm like, okay, that sounds crazy. So recant this tale to me. They're like, well, we don't know exactly what happened, but when we got out there was three boys laying on the ground with bloody noses, and your son was sitting on a bench. And so at that point, I had to kind of compose myself because my pacifist son knocked three dudes on their ass, and it was hard not to smile about that. So
I
I,
mean, I'm proud of him, and he's not even my kid.
I asked him, I said, son, what happened? And he goes, well, they wouldn't leave me alone. And I'm like, okay, did they pick on you or something? He said, no, I just wanted to be left alone. They wanted me to play a game with them, and I did want to play. I asked them nicely several times to leave me alone, and they wouldn't. So after the third time, I stood up and I just punched them each once in the nose, and I sat back down. And I'm like, you punched them once, like how? And he just got up and he mimicked it. And he literally just stood up and like he was just shooting ducks in a row. He just went bonk, 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 just straight forward jab, punched three dudes in the nose and knocked them all down like dominoes. And I'm like, oh my God, this kid's awesome. But obviously I couldn't take that stance. So I was like, we can't have this, right? And he had become a bit more disruptive than usual because of, all the stuff he's dealing with. So at this point, we could barely afford food or anything else. So counseling and stuff was kind of out of the question for our budget. I didn't have a car, I didn't have much of anything. So I was doing the best I could. Well, thankfully, his teacher, her name was Miss Bear, was this younger teacher, but she was old school in terms of how she dealt with stuff. So I was like, look, I need someone to rope him in when I'm not here. What can we do about this? Now, this is before like a lot of these states had repealed or moved to abolish corporal punishment. This school here in Kansas, uh, where we lived at the time, allowed corporal punishment if you signed basically a permission slip and a waiver for their liability. So I was on that like a hot streak. I was just like, yes, ma'am, you have my full authority to whoop his ass if he gets out of line. And me and him and her sat down and I said, I want you to understand that I have given her my full permission to act in my stead. If you step out of line in her class, she has my full permission to whoop your ass in my stead. And she looked at him and said, I will 100% whoop your ass if you step out of line in my class. And he understood that whether or not he's ever seen Miss Bear ever get upset like that, which she hasn't, she's never hit another child that he'd ever saw. He understood that I don't mince words and I have no reason to lie to him. And she never had to raise a finger to him. It the understanding that he knows that I never mince words and I mean business, my authority being granted to another adult was enough to keep him in line. Now, a lot of people are like, "Oh, your child feared you and this stuff," and he did. My child 100% did. And I don't say that's necessarily the way you should raise your child. You don't want your children to be afraid of you. But given the situation, and I won't go into great detail about it, it was a very precarious situation. And a lot of children get lost, and a lot of bad things happen in those kind of situations. So, although it may not have been the best situation, it was the best I knew how to handle the situation given what I had at hand. Um, so, I don't recommend people doing it. Don't get it twisted. But I still believe that spanking and corporal punishment, in terms of that moniker, I still believe has a place in modern society. I think it just needs to be moderated like anything else. Like I was physically abused as a child to a very, very great extent. There is a far cry difference. And the story I always like to tell to illustrate this difference is my grandmother on my father's side was a ex-nun. Lorelai talked about getting your knuckles wrapped. She had a paddle with a bunch of big holes cut in it. It looked like a cutting board. And they used to whoop people with that paddle. Now, my grandmother never whooped me, but one day I was helping her feed her animals. She had like a whole mess ton of these animals in her house, and I was feeding the hamster, And hamsters, for those who don't know, are carnivorous little suckers. And they're kind of dumb sometimes. So if you're feeding their food and they happen to be hungry, they don't always check if it's your hand or the food when you put it in the cage. So they'll bite down, assuming that it's all food. Once they tell it's flesh and not food, they'll let go. But they still need to figure it out. So I got bit by this hamster as a kid, and of course it hurt. He didn't really bite me hard enough to like make me bleed or anything, but it still hurt. So out of instinct, I cussed. I said the F word, and I pulled my hand back. Now my grandmother does not accept that kind of language, especially from a child in her house. Uh, I did not know this. Not that I had ever cussed around my grandmother before, but I quickly learned that was not acceptable. And the reason I learned this is because as soon as I let loose that word, I immediately heard what sounded like a whip cracking and felt an instant pain across my lips. And my mouth hurt like someone had just slapped the ever living hell out of me. However, I never saw my grandmother move. I just heard a crack and my face hurt. She never said anything to me, never yelled at me, never said, don't say that. But in that smack, I knew everything I needed to know. I didn't even have to apologize. I understood the message. We do not curse in grandma's presence, let alone in her house. I never got grounded. I never got a lecture. I didn't need to. I understood the message. Now, a lot of people say, well, she could have just told you, or could have, there's no way to treat a child. But the thing is it taught me two things. It taught me that no matter how frail she looked and no matter how old or whatever, she would always command respect. She was an old lady. And though I was still a child, I wasn't fearful of an old lady. And I still wasn't afraid of my grandmother, but I was respectful that she stood on business. I knew I could take my grandmother in a fight. I wasn't afraid of her beating me down, but she showed me her strength of character. She showed me in no uncertain terms her expectations and exactly the consequences for breaking those expectations. Now, it's a very old school way to do it. There's a lot better ways to do it now in terms of like stating your expectations ahead of time, but you don't have, when you're raising a child, you're not going to spend 27 years lecturing your child about every expectation the moment they pop out of the womb. You kind of have to play it by ear as things come along. And of course, things are going to happen. They're going to repeat things they hear, and you're going to do your best as it goes along. But like I said, there are times when, although it may seem harsh to some, one interaction like this will set the tone and stage that we won't have to have repeat conversations. We won't have to have repeat timeouts. We won't have to be worried about them making a scene in public or offending people or spreading this negative action amongst my cousins or other children in the neighborhood. Because it's demonstrated a level of authority that human beings understand at a primal level, right? Why do we not stick our hand in fire? Because fire is hot. So if you understand fire is hot because you touched something hot and it's hurt you, not third-degree burns, not melted your skin off, but just you touch a stove that's too warm, or you touch the sidewalk or a hot seatbelt in the car, you don't forget those lessons. You're not soon to repeat that. And it reminds you, it teaches you to be cautious of those things. It teaches you consequences to real actions in the world, right? You don't start just hugging cactuses because you realize things are sharp, you know? So those lessons are much easier taught with simpler methods than sitting there and trying to lecture a child that something's owie and sharp. Because curiosity will often win over when they're young because logic and reason and self-preservation often don't exist in young children. That's why, like, when you spank young children, especially when they're young because they have diapers on and stuff, you'll hear that pop when you hit the diaper. They're not actually getting hurt. They didn't actually feel any pain. It's more the shock of what you're doing. It's like those, I don't know if you guys have seen those new videos that come out, the terrible ones where like they're trying to teach their kid like not to touch electric sockets, so they pretend to be electrocuted and like horrify the children.
I haven't seen those.
Yeah, that's like been a new
I
thing.
have.
Now, don't get me wrong. I understand the concept, and as an old school person, I I can kind of get behind the idea of trying to scare them a little bit so they would be afraid of something like that. But it's different when it comes to something that's essentially invisible. It's a much harder lesson to teach them about electricity that way because to a child that young, they don't understand pretend like that. They react in a real way. You really do traumatize that child. They think you died or have been severely hurt. They can't separate pretend like that. It's the reason why they actually get scared of peekaboo the same way you get that sort of shock on a roller coaster, that adrenaline rush. If you've ever played peekaboo with a child, they make a surprise face and then they laugh and giggle because you really
Uh-huh.
do scare them for just a second. And some of them like it and some of them don't. That's why some of them cry when people play peekaboo, is because you really did scare the shit out of them. Even though you're like, how did I scare the shit out of them just by hiding behind my hands? Because they don't have object permanence yet. So when you put your hands in front of your face, you disappeared for just a second. It's stupid, but that's human development for you. So yeah, so not to monopolize all the time, but that's kind of my philosophy on that.
Okay.
You have definitely monopolized all the time.
Uh,
Suck it.
I mean, no, I was gonna say that going by basic human instinct, one of the most basic instincts we have is fear. And if you have nothing to fear, you do things, you do a lot of stupid things until you find out that, oh, like you said, touching the stove, it does burn. Now I fear the heat from the stove. Fear is a basic component that makes us act in certain ways. Corporal punishment, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm for it as a child who's had a lot of corporal punishment, but it is needed in some situations.
okay. What situations?
Well, I mean, you're talking to somebody who's a very, very bad kid. All right. Um, I will give you one situation that I myself received corporal punishment and I deserved corporal punishment for the action. I was around what 11 years old, and it was this girl that I was dating, and I forgot what happened, but she made me mad. She kind of pissed me off, so I kicked her between her legs at school.
Uh-huh.
And this got back home to my parents and my uncles, and I received a very brutal corporal punishment, which
Mhm.
I deserved.
Do you feel I asked somebody in the RP server that I'm with if they were for corporal punishment or not. And he said, although I do believe children deserve to, like, some children deserve or need to be beat, I don't think that we should go around beating other people's children.
Okay, repeat that again.
Although I agree that some children need beat, I don't believe we should go around beating other people's children. So he's for corporal punishment in the home, but not in the schools. Like
Okay,
spanking and stuff. Not like beat to a bloody pulp, but,
yeah,
like
okay,
disciplining.
okay.
Discipline.
As I said earlier, though, it's the fear factor that involves. I say this because I remember being in school and doing something I wasn't supposed to do and getting sent to the principal office. All right, I got two choices. Either I could take a spanking, or he can call my parents. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
did?
Took a spanking.
I took the spanking because the corporal punishment here is none compared to the one I'm gonna get when I get home.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But that goes to what I was saying though, the fact that I feared what my parents would do to me. I didn't fear the little spanking that I would get from the principal, but I feared what would happen if I got home. I mean, just like a suspension. All right. The worst part about suspensions is it's only so long you can skip school before you have to call your parent and have them put you back into school. And why go through all the trouble when you can get a spanking and learn to not do it again instead of the embarrassment you're going to bring upon your parents by having them come up to the school.
There was a friend of mine who she had a couple of kids, and when we were all hanging out, when we were still like kind of new-ish friends, like we know for each other for a little bit, she had this young girl, and she wanted to bring her daughter with her, and I was like, "Yeah, it's fine. I don't mind kids." And her daughter was one of these rambunctious kids, right? She's just like, oh, she's just a handful, and she's so exasperated that her daughter runs around just acting crazy. And she was like climbing on stuff and doing stuff and just acting crazy, like, just kind of like a ADH kid. And I was just like, okay. And she's like, hey, stop doing that. Don't like knock those things. And kids like knocking dice over role playing, right? And her kid turns around and tells her like, shut up. And I was like, oh, that's some awfully big words for such a little girl. And I look at her mom, and I'm looking at her like, you gonna do something? And see, before she brought her kid over, I tell everybody who brings their kids to my house the same thing. I said, look, you're the parent, sure, kid. I'm not going to try to be the parent. That being said, it's my house. As long as you handle your kid and don't make it my problem, I'm okay with it. But if you don't do your job, I no longer care about your authority because I will handle it because it's my problem now. And she's like, that's fine. And I'm like, okay, cool. So her daughter decided to be rambunctious. Her mom tried to control her, and so she ends up like slapping her mom, like on the arm, I think it was. And I was like, don't hit your mom. And she's like, shut up. And I was like, yeah, we're not gonna do this. And so everybody else in the room looked at her as if to say, yeah, this is like your only chance to intervene because now your little girl signed her own death warrant. And she didn't do anything. So I said, you're not going to hit me again, little girl, because if you do, that arm is mine. And so she decided to hit me again, think it was funny. And so when she went to slap me, I grabbed her hand and her wrist, and I held it. And so, of course, she tried to yank away, and I wouldn't let go. So she smacked my hand, and I wouldn't let go. And she yelled at me, and she said, let go. And I said, no, I told you. If you hit me again, it's mine. This is my arm now. And I will do with it what I want. So she climbed up on the couch, and she started kicking my hand. And I was like, still not going to do anything. And so I continued on with the game, and kept her arm in my hand, and we kept going. So then she got this like mischievous look on her face, right? And she had the bright idea that she was going to drop kick me from the couch. Mind you, I'm still holding her hand. And because she's a younger child, like she hasn't worked out the physics of this, right? And I'm like, I wouldn't do that if you. It's not going to work out well. And so she goes and she straight went vertical. And because her body tried to go forward, but her arm was still locked in place, uh, she just fell like a sack of potatoes and just blah 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 on the couch. And she looks at her mom like, blah, 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 blah. I said, she isn't going to save you. I said, look at your mother and tell her to come save you. Go ahead. And she's like, oh, Bobby, Bobby, Bobby. Her mommy looks at her, looks at me, and she's like, I'm not going to save you. And I said, like I said, your arm is mine. Your mom's not going to save you. No one here is going to save you. I said, I'll make you a deal, though. I'll give you your arm back, but you're going to walk over. You're going to apologize to your mother for the things you said and for hitting her. And you're going to sit there quietly and you're never going to hit her again. And if I find out you do, I'm taking the arm back with me, whether you come with it or not. Now, after that night, I didn't see that girl for 8 years. And she became a teenager and a rambunctious teenager. She wasn't crazy. She was just a classic teenage girl, likes boys, likes doing her hair, stuff. Her mom and her boyfriend at the time and their new baby needed a place to stay as they were transitioning, so I let them stay at my apartment for a couple of days. And she was telling me how she's like, oh, dealing with a teenager who's it's crazy. And I was like, yeah, I have one. I know it's like. And so they come in, they bring their stuff, and as her daughter comes in, the first thing she says when she sees me is, hello, Mr. Silva. It's so great to see you. She greets me. She thanks me for letting her stay in my home. Absolutely pleasant young lady, and her mother's jaw just hits the floor, like as if a politeness demon had possessed her daughter. And she's like, she never acts like this with anyone, especially not with me. And I go, right. I wouldn't expect that she does. And she's like, how did you, why? And I said, because this is the effect I have on children. Any child I've met of any age, once they realize that I mean business and there is no crossing that line, they don't cross that line. It's happened to every child I've encountered because all children seek boundaries, they seek authority. It's in their nature. If you provide it to them, they respond to it. If you make deals with them, then you lose your authority, your power. You become an empty promise. You become weak in their eyes. You can't be weak in their eyes. If you've ever, I mean, adults always forget what it was like to be a child. You guys all remember being a child, right? Children are vicious animals. They pounce on each other. They form cliques and mobs. They tear each other apart. They are not nice little creatures that just harmoniously live together like Care Bears. They they are nasty creatures at the best of times. And that sort of mob mentality is what breed stronger offspring. It's ingrained in our DNA. The the morality and kindness and things like that are learned behaviors. Their nature is survival of the fittest. This is why peer pressure is so strong. And so when you understand that, they respond to authority. And I mean, this is even true of older children. Like, Laura, do you remember when we went out there to visit your family for that first time?
Uh-huh.
Did we ever tell Krista what happened with her son?
I don't know.
I have no idea what happened.
So I don't know how exactly the conversation came about, but basically, I don't know if it was patients or somebody, or if it was Lorelai's twin and her boyfriend guy had disseminated, but in some way, shape, or fashion, the legend of the Jericho and his sort of assholish non uh
Oh.
shit-taking personality had been spread.
So
And
before we went out there, one of the kids, I believe it was Max.
the one that was going to be a paramedic.
No. Before we went out there, they wanted to know what to call Jericho because obviously Jericho is not his real name, but that is what I call him. So they wanted to know what to call him, and he said Mr. Silva. He was cool with this. Well, my kids weren't cool with it because they thought it was weird, but they didn't say anything to the nature. But your oldest was like, "Well,
Mhm.
I'm not calling him Mr. Silva."
Of course not, because yeah, I'm not surprised he said that.
You want to pick up on the story, babe?
Yeah. So there was a small conversation, and they were like, "Well, if he doesn't want to call you that, what does he can call you?" And so he doesn't have to call me anything then. Like, you asked me what do you want me to call you, that's what I will respond to. If he doesn't, then if he doesn't want to call me by what I want to be called, then he doesn't have to talk to me, basically, is what the end of the conversation was. And it wasn't about me being rude, but I don't know you that way. Like, if you want to
Mhm.
introduce yourself to me, and I'll say that, but it's always been how I've been with children, because there's a boundary there. Like, I've never been like, hey, and children come up to me like, what up, bro? Like, no, that's not how
Uh-huh.
that is. Like, and it's not about that I can't respect you, but because I don't know you. Same with adults. Like, if an adult comes up to me and they just start calling me some weird ass thing, it's up to me. Like, they're like, hey man, I'm Jeff. What's your name? And I'll be like, hey, Mike, fat guy, whatever. If I give you the permission to just be casual with me, then that's fine. But off the rip, I'm just not going to be like, yeah, you're just going to treat me like we're equals, because we're not, right?
Mhm.
And it's nothing to do with arrogance. It has all to do with respect. And to be fair, I had a biased interpretation of your children, and what, because I've heard stories about different things, and I didn't want to go into a position of too much familiarity, because if
Mhm.
something were to kick off and somebody were to get smart about something and I had to intervene on your behalf or Lorelai's behalf or whatever, I didn't want to be like, hey, we're buddies and pals, right? You know what I mean? I had to
Right.
keep an air of I'm an adult, and that's the position I need to be in. Not that I had any real authority in the family, but you understand my stance. At least I hope so. Needless to say,
Yeah.
that was a position I took. So as this went on, it had been brought back to me that uh, Patience, I believe, is the one that relayed the message, that he had said something to the effect, it escapes me at the moment, but it was basically something to the effect of like, well, he better not try to throw his weight around or whatever, because I'll show him where he can shut the fuck up, or something like that. A lot of bravado, basically. And I was like, oh, really? Okay. And so the
And
time
you said it
came.
was my oldest that said that, because that totally sounds like something number two would say, not what number one would say.
No, it was definitely
Oh,
number one.
that surprises me.
It was
That part,
I don't.
whichever one was the that you introduced me that wanted to be the paramedic.
that's my oldest. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's number one. Who is a paramedic, by the way?
Good for
No,
him, by
he's
the way.
not.
Oh, I thought he
He's an
was.
EMT. No, he's an
Okay,
EMT
he was a
and
paramedic.
second lieutenant of the fire station. No, he's never wanted to be a paramedic. He wanted to be an EMT. He's a combat medic in the
Gotcha.
army.
Okay, there you go. So
Yeah.
good
So
on
he
him.
did become a medic. He is still in the army. But yeah.
And that's
And
see,
he's in school.
and that's awesome. So
But
when
he's
I
also
met
got a
him,
smart.
um, I confronted him, not about that in particular, right? I didn't like go, hey, asshole. But I came up to him,
Yeah, let's go out in the parking lot and square up. Yeah,
right? Like,
no.
I'm just, you're right, exactly. So I went to him and I just was like, hey, how you doing? You know, I heard you were looking forward to meeting me. You know, I'm, Mr. Silva, blah, 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 blah. He's like, hey, how you doing? And he basically immediately towed the line. Like all that bravado just instantly vanished. And he was very respectful, very straightforward, no problems. And then patients commented about it later, like, wow, like that was a complete 180. Like I have no idea what happened. And I was like, because he was expecting an asshole to show up because of what he heard. But that's just it. Like a lot of people don't appreciate my way of doing things because they don't like being told certain things or hearing certain things. But my quote unquote ashholeish personality has less to do with me actually being an asshole and more about me being blunt and straightforward. People just don't like to hear the truth. And it's not my truth, it's the objective truth. Like if someone comes up to me and says, and they happen to weigh 300 pounds and they're 5'4", and they're like, does this dress make me look fat? And I'm like, no, you're fat. The dress has nothing to do with it. And they're just like,
Right.
you're an asshole. I'm like, nope, that's just the
Now
truth.
you're honest. That's the truth.
I mean, I'm sorry you don't like reality, but that's where I live. Hopefully the rides in your fantasy land are cool and easily priced for the rest of us, but you know, sorry I can't join you. I don't have the fast pass. I don't know what to tell you. Now I'm not saying I can't be an asshole. I definitely have the talent to do so. I'm just saying that like that's just how I've been with all children. And it's always worked. And it's not to say that I just have a magical way with children. It's just like I studied psychology and children's psychology when I was in college because I wanted to understand people. I've always tried to understand people. And just like dogs, human beings are far simpler than most people realize. We like to complicate things and we like to dress things up. And we like to add gray areas when there really don't need to be gray areas. Because having these sliders, I like to call them, when it comes to morals and when it comes to like facts and figures, allows people to feel that they've won even when winning does nothing for them. It's kind of like the spectrum argument, right? Like if everybody's on a spectrum, then it muddies the water, right? Like if you could say that like a canker sore is technically herpes, well then the vast majority of the world has herpes. Okay, well that
Okay,
doesn't help you identify actual cases of herpes. You're
we've
muddying the
gotten
waters.
way off the topic of corporal punishment.
I agree. But yeah, so bringing us back full circle, I think corporal punishment has its place. That's my stance on it. But like anything, I think it needs to be used responsibly. And I think there is um I think like medicine, it affects people differently and you have to have the right punishment for the right person. It's not universal. Some people, like Krista mentioned, you do smack a child on the butt and they look at you like you didn't do anything or that you're stupid and wasting time. And harder isn't going to do it. And this isn't to lump all women together, but I notice a lot of women have trouble controlling their emotions when spanking's involved. Like, in my experience, a lot of women spank out of anger and frustration. They don't spank out of intent. Men will come at it with this is the punishment and this is the crime, and then marry those two together. But like a lot of women will only punish as a last resort when it comes to spanking. And when they do so, they're already frustrated and frayed. So they kind of are a loose cannon. They're not measuring power, they're not measuring placement. They're just kind of swinging wildly and letting them slaps fly. And that's when abuse, unfortunately, tends to slip in, is because, I didn't mean to hit him that hard, or I was aiming here, but I hit him on the thigh instead of the buttocks, and then it leaves a mark, and it's a whole thing. And I'm not saying women are the only ones that do this. Just in my experience, they tend to let that frustration fray them a bit more than men do. Oh, and it also has to do with men already being stronger. So physically, we learn from a fairly early age to control our strength as it is, because otherwise we start bruising everybody around us.
Do we know when corporal punishment stopped being legal in prisons?
I have no idea.
You mean here in America?
Uh huh. Yes, here in America.
Let's find out.
Give me 1 second. Oh, 1972. The last state to utilize whipping as a criminal sentence was Delaware, which was officially abolished the practice in 1972. Wow, Delaware of all states.
Why do you say that?
I mean, I didn't figure Delaware to be a state that whooping inmates. I mean, I would figure it would be somewhere like Mississippi or Texas or Florida, Georgia, somewhere down south.
Well, isn't Delaware technically considered South? Are they below the Mason-Dixon?
Actually, it says Delaware and Maryland were the only two U.S. states utilizing judicial corporal punishment in the 20th century.
Oh, that's interesting.
One of the chief arguments that got it abolished in the United States?
What?
What?
that it that it was unpleasant to administer. It wasn't even like they're being mean to the prisoners. It's just the guys doing the whippings were
He
like,
wasn't having fun. It wasn't fun, so it wasn't worth doing it.
they kept crying, man, and they get blood everywhere. I felt so
And I had to clean it
bad.
all up. Takes
Do-
a lot
do you-
of energy.
Wait, hold up. I just read something that's kind of interesting. It says, however, it is worth noting that corporal punishment is still legal in other American institutions. Most notably, the National Education Association reports 17 to 19 states, primarily in the South and Midwest, still allow public school personnel to physically discipline students.
Yeah, so we're not allowed to beat our inmates who have broken the laws, but we're allowed to beat to shape the children who are growing up in our area.
But if you're a parent and you beat your child will get taken from you.
Yes. Yes.
So
Let me just put that out there too.
Yep.
it's funny.
I always felt like hitting a kid just teaches a kid not to hit, like, because it hurts. It's like when I took educational psychology in undergrad, the professor said something that was like actually kind of like blew my mind a little bit. He said, so you have this dog in your house training this dog, and the dog poops on the floor. And you take the dog's nose and you put it in the poop and you say, no, 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 no. You're teaching the dog, don't put my nose in my poop. And for a minute, I was like, nah. And then I was, actually, that's exactly what you're teaching the dog. Don't put your nose in the poop. You're not teaching it not to poop on the floor. To do that, you've got to catch them when they're pooping on the floor and go, no, you don't poop on the floor, and you move them to where they can.
Right.
Okay, I'm not quite sure about that because I've actually seen this technique where I've done it myself and it actually works. We once had this dog.
It can work, but it's not when you think about it logically. And if you're looking at it from like a psychological standpoint, you're teaching them to not like whatever behavior you're giving them while you're saying no is what you're teaching them is not okay.
Well, okay, what I did was a little different though. We had this dog, and this dog would crap in the house. So what I did one day was I cooked this dog a big feast. I mean, I cooked him all kind of food, and he crapped right there in the middle of the kitchen floor, and I put his face in it. I didn't like. Okay. I slammed his face into it and I beat the crap out of him. Then I washed him up. The next time he had to use the bathroom, he was beating on the door in the middle of the night to wake me up to use the bathroom. It did work. Now, I'm not sure if it was the putting his nose in the, or beating his tail that actually got him to go to the bathroom, though. That I can't say.
Or the combination of the two, yeah.
Well, see, the thing about dogs is it depends on the dog too, just like with the person. Some dogs are smarter than other dogs. Some dogs they get the hint and some dogs don't. But in the wild, that's how they teach each other. Like the leader of the pack, if he doesn't want something to be done, he'll nip at the dog, right? So like one dog comes over and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to go sleep on this spot." If that's the spot that leader doesn't want him to sleep at, he'll bite the dog's haunches or whatever. Now they're gonna rip a hole in him, but it'll be like, "Hey, get the fuck out of here! This is my spot. Like, what are you doing?" And he'll learn, okay, I don't sleep in that spot. Got it.
We got anything else?
How often did you beat your kids, Lorelai? Tell the truth.
I didn't. I think I swatted my oldest in the mouth once, right after they got their braces tightened because they were getting lippy with me and I wanted to make a statement. So I
Oof.
swatted
So
their.
you channeled your inner Sophie.
Yes, I did.
Because she did that to me when I told you I hated you. I got smacked right in the mouth full of braces.
Yeah, but it was.
I'm
telling you, we were leaving the orthodontist office after getting them tightened. So you know how sore your teeth are to begin with.
Yeah.
And I just did a little tap. It wasn't like gonna leave a bruise type hit, but it was enough to get their attention. The youngest.
I think I have spanked your children.
The youngest used to laugh at me, so I just didn't spank her because she would just laugh.
See, it's just because you didn't have the force.
Well, and I think too that neurodivergence plays a role in how well corporal punishment worked with our kids, because for a lot of kids that are neurodivergent, that being hit fulfills a sensory need for them, and that like heavy pressure, high pressure touch that is actually satisfying and gratifying. So it's no surprise to me that when I would spank my youngest, he would laugh and go, "That didn't hurt." It probably fed a need that he had instead. So, it wasn't useful. But I'm sure I probably spanked your kids on occasion. Because when you're in my house, you get by my rules. And if you step out of line.
I remember the one Mother's Day when you guys were down at 22 and you guys were living up the street and you wanted to go home. You were like, "I'm done. Let's go." And your younger one was in the backyard playing and "We'll leave when I'm ready to leave." And I stood up and said, "You better get your ass moving now." And he just dropped the ball and started walking out of the yard. Like, they were afraid that I was going to beat their asses, but I never raised a hand to any of them.
And that's the funny thing too, is once they hit like 2, I didn't discipline them physically anymore, but all I had to do was start to stand up and they would run.
Yeah.
Like, I've never beat you, but you run away from me like I've like beaten you to a bloody pulp on a regular basis. I've never understood that. And they can't explain it. They don't know why they did. They just knew, like, I guess they were afraid if I did catch them that, I don't know.
Even though he laughs at you.
I don't know.
Like, what?
Yeah, and then they'd run and laugh. But at least they ran.
I do know the one time my youngest one pissed me off so poorly, like so bad. And I knew I couldn't smack her because she'd laugh, so I grabbed her like at the base of her neck, like grabbed the hair at her neck.
And the little hairs.
Controlled her up the steps because that's where we were going. She wouldn't, So
your
that
mother
was effective.
Used to do that with ponytails. Your mother used to do that with ponytails with all of us. Lisa complains about her hair being short. She should be glad her hair was short. Because, that woman could pull a ponytail. Ask the kids. They could all tell you that too. Even Andrew and Christian with their short hair, because they had all those curls, they were easy to grab onto. She'd always say, I always pull hair because it doesn't leave a mark.
God, now I know where we got it. Damn.
Just sitting here
Yep.
talking about corporal punishment and everything. I thought about something that well, in my experience, it hurt a lot more than corporal punishment was for my mom or my aunt or whoever it was to actually sit me down and talk to me and tell me how disappointed they were.
Uh-huh.
I'm so disappointed is like a knife. Oh, yes.
Yeah, my youngest one always hated that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. My kids still don't like for me to say that.
Yep.
And
I'm not mad at you.
dad said it one time to your twin.
I'm not mad at you.
I'm not mad at you, but I'm very
I'm
disappointed.
so disappointed though. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Kiss of death. Yep. Hurt way more than that stupid paddle from those elastic paddle balls, that's for sure.
Look, just remember, emotional scars last way longer than physical scars,
Mm-hmm.
people.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, emotional abuse is a lot harder to heal from, a lot harder to address when you're in therapy, a lot harder to like change because you have to completely change the way you see yourself and think of yourself.
Exactly.
And that's a
So
hard
just
thing to do.
remember to get out of line, man. Just think you're gonna have lots of free money when you get older. Hope you have a good paying job because them therapy bills are gonna kill you.
Okay, guys. I think that's going to be it for today.
Thanks for joining us.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, all the fun jazz. And we'll see you next time. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
You guys have a great night.